So what does this mean for us today? We saw across throughout the ages that God intends for us to not neglect, but to be good stewards of what He's entrusted to us. So what does this mean for us today? Now, you may be driving down a street, maybe it's a nice sunny day, and you can see all that people have. And you may see a guy out there, and he's cleaning up his car, he's waxing it down. And perhaps another guy will walk up to this guy that's cleaning up his car, and he'll say something like, "Well, you're sure taking good care of her." And the other guy will say, "Yeah, she looks good, doesn't she?" And maybe it's a car, maybe it's a boat, maybe it's a camper. But they'll have this conversation, and maybe the guy that's cleaning up said, "Yeah, me and the wife are going to take her down the road here later," and they keep referring to this thing as her, and her is an object that's getting a lot of attention, and her is something that's not being neglected. So we're going to use the word her, H-E-R, and we're going to talk about 3 areas of our life that we do not want to neglect. So the first letter is H. You don't want to neglect your health, okay? Your health is something that God has given you. I was watching myself on this first sermon video. I had to watch it. So I'm sitting there in the living room, and I pull it up on the DVD player, and I'm looking, and I start to notice something. And I'm looking at this video, and I call my wife in the room, and I point to the screen, and I said, "Honey, who's that fat guy on the screen?" I said, "I used to be the skinny guy that people made fun of." Since August of 2005, I just went to the doctor and I know this. Since August of 2005, I've gained 21 pounds. I hate to admit it. But I have. I'm not watching what I eat. I'm not exercising. I'm not eating right. And when you don't do those things, you start to neglect your health. What I'm saying is you need to be dieting. I know we're busy right now. It's a busy time of life, but you need to be taking care of yourself. If you neglect your health and you end up in a bed and you're sick, you're not going to be any good to anybody. You're not going to be able to do the things that you're sacrificing your health for. So don't neglect your health. Now the second letter is E.
Chad, that's too close to home.
We don't want to neglect the environment. Now, I'm not a big-time environmentalist. I'm not an environmentalist wacko or anything like that. But 3 weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, my wife and I were going to host Thanksgiving at her house. And we pull out our drinking glasses, and we're looking at these things, and they're really looking bad. They're streaked. We've had them for a while. And so we decided to get some new ones. And we're trying to decide, well, should we get these old ones away? And they're in such bad shape. I say, "Honey, let's just throw them out." We were too embarrassed to even give them to somebody. But I didn't want to throw them in the trash because I thought these things, they're not going to biodegrade. They're going to sit in a landfill for like the next 1,000 years or something like that. So I get on the internet and I find a place to take these. And at the corner of Swiss and Hall, you've got these receptacles, and they take glass and plastic and metal and take all your stuff there. And we don't want to neglect our environment. God gave us this resource to take care of it. We need to be good stewards of it. And the last letter in our acronym is R, H-E-R. We don't want to neglect our relationships. Now, when I first got to Dallas Seminary, my wife and I, we got to go sit down and we got to have lunch with Howard Hendricks. It just worked out that way. It was during orientation, and people get paired up with different professors to have lunch with. So we got paired up with Howard Hendricks, and we go and we sit down with him, and he's just giving us advice. And he tells us, he said, "You know what? Before I ever came to Dallas Seminary, I made a decision. And I decided that every day I was going to spend 1 hour with God. And I will flunk out of Dallas Seminary before I give up my 1 hour a day with God." Now he continues to go on and say, if people come to this seminary and they neglect their relationship with the Lord, they need to just quit. You're neglecting the very reason you came here. He said, "Well, go back to being," go back to being a plumber or an electrician. He said, "Just go back and do whatever it was you were doing before you got here." don't neglect your relationship with the Lord. All your other relationships are hinged upon that relationship you have with the Lord. If you neglect that, everybody's going to suffer. Your wife, your kids, your friends, everybody suffers if you neglect your relationship with the Lord. You know, I started out talking to you today about this scene of coming up to this farmhouse that obviously had been neglected, and the weeds were growing up and it was dilapidated. And I saw the pain in my dad's face and in my dad's heart when he saw this house that was precious to him that had been neglected. And that house was lost. It was just gone. When you choose to neglect something, you're going to lose it. So don't neglect the things that God has entrusted to your care. Thanks.